Hey everyone, I'm Bradford with the Penny Pincher's Guide to Personal Finance. In this video, we're going to be talking about the IRS Direct File program. What is it? A little bit of a walkthrough of what the actual software looks like, talking about the pros and cons, and whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. To start off, it is about time that the IRS has some sort of tax preparation software that is available for people to be able to just file their taxes without having to go hire a CPA or go use some sort of outside tax preparation software like TurboTax or H&R Block. So I'm super excited that with the launch of the pilot program last year in 2024, and now with it starting to be rolled out to more and more states, that the IRS is finally allowing you to be able to file your taxes for free without having to pay somebody else to finally pay your taxes. With that excitement, I do want to caveat it. The bottom line up front, the IRS Direct File program, at least with what I've seen, is terrible. It's extremely limited. You basically have to have a super simple tax situation to actually be able to use it. It's only rolled out in 25 of the 50 states, not including the other territories where you have to actually file your federal taxes. If you are in many pretty common situations, you're not going to be able to file. Did you contribute to an individual retirement account? Sucks, you can't use the program. Did you own or trade or sell or buy any sort of cryptocurrency, NFTs, anything like that? None of the tax forms are actually supported by this program. Did you own a rental property? Do you have any sort of side income that's not a W-2 income? Well, guess what? You're not eligible. So kind of with that up front, let's actually look at the IRS's website, look at the IRS Direct File, and try to get a better understanding of honestly how terrible this program is that's been offered by the IRS. So starting out, we can just navigate over here, go into www.irs.gov, and then there's a couple different ways you can navigate it. Basically through the file, go to how to file, and then you can get to the IRS Direct File portal right here. So this is where it is. You can basically, it gives you a good overview of the information when it comes to the IRS Direct File. So kind of scrolling down here, it says, great, hey, new in 2025, you can import your tax information directly from the IRS. So if you were part of the pilot program last year, you can import that information that you used last year into the current year's tax information. But if you are trying to file from someplace else, you had a CPA, you used some sort of tax preparation software, there is no way to just be able to input or import your information from someplace else. And going through it, we'll see it in a minute, but you can't like even import a PDF version of your W-2. You still have to manually copy and transfer everything from your W-2 into the sections that are provided by the IRS Direct File program. So continuing down in here, it shows you what are the participating states. So currently, like I mentioned earlier, it's only 25 out of 50 states. So here they are right here. These are the participating states. If you did not live in one of these 25 states for the entirety of tax year 2024, you are not eligible. So if you moved at any point, if you lived there for all the way up until December 30th and you moved to a different state on December 31st, you're not going to be eligible. But if you did live in one of these 25 states for the entirety of the year, you might be eligible. Let's continue going. They are, again, pretty limited on what sort of incomes, tax credits, and deductions that are actually supported in here. So the big thing, income. It's going to be W-2 wage income, 1099 Social Security, 1099G unemployment compensation, interest, retirement income, and then 1099 miscellaneous for Alaska residents with the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend. Like I said, if you had any other types of income where it says gig economy, so you had some sort of side hustle, a rental, whether it's rental properties or whatnot, or any sort of business income, out of luck, not supported here. Credits. These are the ones that are actually supported. It's going to be the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, credit for other dependents, child and dependent care credit, premium tax credit, credit for the elderly or disabled, and retirement savings contribution credit. And then it gives you a little bit of SA if you live in Washington State. There's another credit that you would be eligible for on the state tax side of things. Deductions, the only ones that are supported, it's going to be the standard deduction. So if you do any sort of itemized deductions, you can't use this program. Student loan interest, educator expenses, and then health savings account contributions. Finally, state returns. Obviously, IRS Direct File program, it is for federal taxes, but it will point you towards where you can potentially file your state taxes for free. Online customer support, you can get technical support or basic tax law questions in both English and Spanish. You can chat live or request a callback, so on the phone. Questions related to the direct file are routed through other IRS customer service representatives if they are not related to the direct file itself. Some resources that are available to you, and then it gives you some information if you did participate in the pilot program last year. But continuing on along here, so if you say, hey, sign into IRS Direct File, it's going to bring you to this next page, and you can come down here and it's going to give you a little bit more information, and then you can actually check your eligibility, and it's going to take you through 5 steps here. So you can scroll through and say, hey, what state did I live in? So you say, hey, it allows you to be the first option here. You can click on it, and there are going to be specific requirements for each of the states that are actually participating. So you can see here's what it is for Alaska. We go to Arizona, and it's going to say, hey, you can file your federal taxes with Direct File and your state taxes with Arizona's Direct Filing tool. But continuing through here, it's going to give you what circumstances this is going to be a good fit for you compared to what is going to make it basically disqualifying or not a good option. So for Arizona, if you had a property tax credit, if you have a credit for contributions to foster care, charitable organizations, or you have 529 contribution deductions, you're not going to be able to use it. One thing, because I kind of went through this because I'm a Texas state resident, so I clicked on it, I said Texas. It's going to be a good option for you if you lived in Texas for all of 2024, you earned all your income in Texas, and you aren't using the married filing separately filing status. So I click on this. So it's going to say, hey, you can only use it if it's these certain types of income, which is basically what we covered already. Big thing I'm going to highlight here. If you make more than $200,000, you can't use this. If your spouse makes more than $200,000, you can't use this. If you're married filing jointly and between the two of you, you make more than $250,000, you can't use this. If you're married filing separately and you make more than $125,000, you cannot use this. So pretty income restricted if you're trying to use this program. Click on next. Savings and retirement. You can direct file, earn interest, you had an HSA, an FSA. What about if you use a medical savings account? Nope, you can't use it. Retirement. You can use direct file if you have contributions to an employer-sponsored retirement plans like a 401k, pension, annuity, 403b, governmental. You can't if you have basically any other thing. You have a Roth IRA? Nope. You have a traditional IRA? Can't use it. So it's going to say, hey, these are the contributions that you can't use it for. They are going to be coming out with an update in March of this year, 2025. If you do receive distributions from a 1099-R, so basically from your qualified retirement account, you are receiving money from that. As of March, you will be able to actually file with IRS Direct File. Continuing on, deductions. Standard, good. Itemized, bad. I already mentioned that. Continuing on, credits. Talks about what are the tax credits that you are eligible for. I mentioned that on the first page. Biggest thing is, hey, do you have any other credits that are not on this list? Then no, you cannot use the IRS Direct File and claim those credits. So then click Next. Sounds like you're a good option. Then to be able to actually sign in and create an account, you're going to have to go through ID.me. They're going to use different forms of multi-factor authentication, so you're going to be able to actually authenticate your account, and then you're going to have to upload either your driver's license, some sort of state ID, your passport, or your passport card, and then you're going to have to pull up on your phone or your computer a way that they're going to basically do a little visual FaceTime call to be able to verify that your face matches the face that is on the ID, and then you'll have your account set up. So then you'll go actually log into your account, and that's what I'm going to pull up now, so that way we can see kind of what does the user interface look like with the Direct File program itself. So this is kind of what the home page looks like. So we're just going to go to the sign in section, and then you're going to say, hey, sign in with ID.me. Then you can just simply input your email address as well as the password that you chose from earlier. Now, once you've logged in, this is what the screen is going to look like. It's just going to say, welcome to Direct File. It's going to tell you what is the status of your return. Because I just created that, it's going to say in progress. Once it's filed, I'd imagine that's going to say complete once it's accepted. And then once you have a refund, if you're eligible for one, whether it's been processed or not. So we're just going to click continue to my 2024 federal return. Big note here is that you can only use Direct File through the tax filing deadline. Not entirely sure yet. If you don't meet this exception of being affected by a disaster situation where they extend your filing allowance, whether or not you can file any sort of tax return extension or not with this program. So we'll just click continue. Big thing here, what I really don't like compared to other sorts of tax return softwares is there's no way to jump around. If you haven't fully filled out a section, you can't jump ahead and fill out another section. So some of the information that it's going to pull from the ID.me will be correct. When I initially filled this out, it didn't have my full name in there. So just be aware that any information that it does automatically populate into your form that you are double checking, QCing, and making sure that it is actually correct with what your legal name and other information is. So we can just say in here, one thing, I'd already kind of clicked through some of these areas just to see what is eligible or not. So I'm going to start at the beginning. So basically, there is a ton of sources of income that the IRS Direct File does not support. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through this, pause the video if you see any sort of information or income that applies to you, because if it does, you can't use the IRS Direct File. Kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, this program is honestly terrible because it doesn't support the vast majority of tax situations. Unless you basically just have a W-2 and that's it, you're taking the standard deduction, maybe you're married filing jointly and you have a couple kids, that's really the only situation where this is going to actually be helpful. But probably if you're not in this situation, you're going to probably be able to use the IRS Free File program and use some other sort of tax preparation software to be able to file your taxes. And any of the UIs on any of those softwares are going to be much better. They're probably going to have better customer support and things like that. But kind of clicking along in here, showing, say, hey, does Direct File support all the income sources you have for 2024? Pretty much all of these you need to be saying, like for any of the questions that it's asking you, if there's any sort of complicated tax situation and you say, yes, that applies to me, it's going to show you this. So let's say, hey, I have other types of income to report. It's going to stop you and say, hey, it doesn't support, I have the forms required to report all income types. You need to exit this tax return. And it basically says, good luck. You got to figure out some other way of filing your taxes because this tool is not going to be it. Now, if you hit it by accident, just hit back and then say, oh, look, it's going to highlight at the top of your screen until you change this answer that, hey, the IRS Direct File program is not a good fit for you because you're not eligible and they won't let you file your taxes. You won't actually be able to go any further along in any part of the form if you answer a question and it shows that you are ineligible. So I'm just going to go back and say, hey, yes, all my income sources are supported by Direct File. Let's just say save and continue, and then we can continue on in here. A couple things, any sort of foreign accounts, NA, you're not going to be able to use this program. Any sort of digital assets, if you've been making some money on the Bitcoin rise that we saw over the past year, not supported. Did you make a wise financial decision and contribute to your IRA, whether it's a Roth or traditional? Ineligible. Cool. So right here, I kind of got to the job section and then I stopped when I was going my own little walkthrough and say, hey, it's going to highlight where do you need to finish answering a question in before you can continue. You can see right here, any of this other stuff that I can't actually access is because I haven't finished filling out the information in jobs. So we'll click on that, go over there. So we'll just hit continue. And then, hey, you need to fill out your form W-2. Now, let's click on review this section right here. Yep, it's going to show all my personal information. So, blur that out here. Let's finish answering these questions. So unlike most forms of tax preparation software where you're going to be able to just upload a PDF form of your W-2 or actually directly import it from your company's payroll system, this one you have to manually just transcribe everything over. So have your copy of your W-2 on one side of your screen, have this on the other half, and then fill it out. And really this doesn't do a whole lot more than actually what you'd be doing if you were just using the free fillable forms, which has no sort of income limitation, where basically you're just going to fill out the 1040 yourself. So this breaks it out a little bit more line by line, and it looks more similar to what I've seen with other sort of tax preparation softwares. But honestly, it's not really doing anything that's going to help you out. And I kind of went through a little bit. Let's just go back to this checklist real quick. And what you see here is what you get. It's pretty bare bones. There's not a whole lot going on in terms of user interface. There's no informational section. I mean, you can switch everything to Spanish up here. You can switch it back to English, and then you can go chat with somebody and it brings up a separate page where you can ask simple questions about the tax code. You just type in your name, you type in your question, and then you continue on your merry way. But really, this is going to be it. And that pretty much wraps up the IRS Direct File program. Kind of what I mentioned earlier, if you have a simple tax situation and you don't want to go use one of the other sorts of free filing forms that are out there, whether it's a CPA, if you're qualified for the VITA, mill tax, whatever those other things are that we talked about in some of our other videos, sure, use the IRS Direct File, and it is a pretty simple way to be able to file your taxes year to year. You can get it done pretty quickly, especially if you're really much just like a W-2, maybe a couple dependents, so you get those credits, and then you're claiming the standard deduction. But if you have pretty much any other sort of tax situation, like I mentioned earlier, you're doing any sort of cryptocurrency, you're investing your retirement in some sort of IRA that's not a 401k or what I mentioned earlier, you're going to be ineligible. So aside from the fact that the majority of Americans, I would say, are not going to be eligible to actually use this program, the user interface sucks. It's not helpful. It's not laid out well. You can't jump around and work on different parts depending on what works best for you. It's very limited, and I don't like it. I was really hoping for something more. Considering I don't know exactly how many, I'm sure millions of dollars went into developing this, but it kind of seems like a waste of our taxpayer money, especially with how many other forms of great user interface are available with various tax preparation softwares. I would have hoped that the government would have provided something better. Unfortunately, it didn't. So if you are looking for a better way to be able to file your taxes and this doesn't seem like a good fit for you, definitely check out our Tax 101 playlist that we have right here. We take you through all sorts of different tax situations, business taxes, individual taxes, and we have different actual examples with 1040s based on various scenarios of what might be a best fit for you. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and from your first penny to your first million, we're here to help.